I want you to think about something before I say another word. Think about the last time you felt genuinely foggy in the middle of the afternoon. That heavy, sluggish, can't quite think straight feeling that settles in a few hours after lunch. Or the shakiness, the irritability, the sudden desperate need for something sweet that comes out of nowhere and feels completely uncontrollable. Or the tiredness that hits you like a wall at 3 p.m., even when you slept reasonably well the night before. If any of those sound familiar, I need you to stay with me for the next 5 minutes. Because what I am about to share with you is not about diabetes. You do not need a diabetes diagnosis for what I am about to describe to be happening inside your body right now, and actively destroying your independence, your strength, your memory, and your daily energy in ways that most people over 70 never connect to blood sugar at all. Drop a yes in the comments right now if you experience that afternoon energy crash regularly, because you are going to want to know what is actually causing it. I am Dr. Marcus Bell, and this is Senior Strength Guide. Let us get into it. Part 1. The blood sugar problem. Nobody warns seniors about. Most people think about blood sugar as a diabetes issue. Either you have diabetes or you do not, and if you do not, then blood sugar is not something you need to worry about. That belief is one of the most consequential misunderstandings in senior health today, because what the research shows is something dramatically different and far more relevant to the daily lives of most adults over 70 than any conversation happening in a standard 12-minute doctor's appointment. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism by Kalyani and colleagues showed that even in adults with completely normal fasting blood glucose levels, which is the standard test used to screen for diabetes, blood sugar regulation becomes measurably and significantly impaired after the age of 65 through a mechanism called age-related insulin resistance. Insulin resistance means that the cells of your body, particularly your muscle cells, your brain cells, and your fat cells, have become less responsive to the insulin signal that tells them to absorb glucose from the bloodstream. When cells do not respond properly to insulin, blood glucose stays elevated longer after meals than it should, then drops too quickly as the body overcompensates, creating the cycle of energy spikes and crashes that most seniors experience as normal afternoon tiredness. But it is not normal tiredness. It is a blood sugar regulation problem, and it has consequences that go far beyond feeling sleepy after lunch. Type insulin in the comments right now if you have ever had a doctor explain insulin resistance to you in the context of your energy levels and daily function. Because for most seniors, the answer is going to be never, and that gap in information is exactly why this video exists. Part 2. What blood sugar instability is actually doing to your body after 70. Here is where this gets genuinely important, and I want you to listen very carefully to this section, because what I am about to describe is happening right now in the bodies of the majority of adults over 70 in developed countries, regardless of whether they have been told about it. The first consequence of age-related insulin resistance and chronic blood sugar instability is accelerated muscle loss. Research published in Diabetes Care by Park and colleagues examining over 2,675 older adults in the Health, Aging, and Body Composition study found that insulin resistance is directly and independently associated with accelerated loss of muscle mass in adults over 65, even in the absence of diagnosed diabetes. The mechanism is this. Chronically elevated post-meal blood sugar triggers a sustained release of cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, which directly promotes muscle protein breakdown and suppresses muscle protein synthesis. Every time your blood sugar spikes and crashes, your body is spending time in a catabolic state that is actively breaking down the muscle tissue you desperately need to maintain your strength, your balance, and your independence. The second consequence is cognitive impairment. Research published in the New England Journal of Medicine by Crane and colleagues showed that even modest elevations in blood glucose within the normal range significantly increased dementia risk in adults over 65. The brain is one of the most glucose-dependent organs in the body, and chronic blood sugar instability, specifically the pattern of high spikes followed by rapid drops, is directly damaging to the neurons and blood vessels that support cognitive function. This is why the foggy, unfocused feeling after a high-carbohydrate lunch is not just tiredness. It is your brain telling you that its fuel supply is being delivered erratically. The third consequence is falls and balance deterioration. Research published in Diabetes Care by Schwartz and colleagues showed that insulin resistance and blood sugar instability are independently associated with reduced muscle power, impaired balance, and significantly increased fall risk in adults over 70. The mechanism involves the combination of accelerated muscle loss we just discussed and the direct effect of chronic elevated blood glucose on peripheral nerve function, a condition called subclinical peripheral neuropathy that reduces the sensory feedback from your feet and ankles that your nervous system relies on for balance. Are you putting these pieces together? The afternoon brain fog, the muscle weakness, the balance problems, the energy crashes. These are not separate, unrelated symptoms of getting older. They are all connected to the same underlying blood sugar regulation problem. And nobody is talking about this connection in plain language to seniors who need to hear it. Drop a 2 in the comments if you experience more than one of these symptoms regularly, because knowing that they are connected is the first step toward addressing all of them at once. Part 3. The foods that are making this dramatically worse. I want to be very specific here because this is the part that genuinely changes what happens at breakfast tomorrow morning. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition by Jenkins and colleagues, the original glycemic index research that changed nutritional science, demonstrated that different carbohydrate-containing foods produce dramatically different rates of blood glucose rise and fall. The foods that produce the fastest and highest blood glucose spikes, followed by the most rapid drops, are exactly the foods that most seniors over 70 eat every single day without connecting them to their afternoon energy crashes, their increasing muscle weakness, or their deteriorating cognitive sharpness. The specific foods most responsible for blood sugar instability in the senior population are white bread, standard breakfast cereals, white rice, crackers, pastries, fruit juice consumed without fiber, and any packaged snack food containing refined flour or added sugar. These are the foods that flood the bloodstream with glucose faster than the aging insulin response can manage, triggering the spike and crash cycle that drives every consequence we just discussed. But here is something even more specific that most seniors have never heard. Research published in Diabetes Care by Jakubowicz and colleagues showed that the timing of carbohydrate consumption matters as much as the type. Consuming high glycemic foods in the morning, when cortisol is naturally elevated, produces significantly more dramatic blood sugar spikes and subsequent crashes than the same foods consumed later in the day. This means that a breakfast of white toast with jam and a glass of orange juice is creating one of the worst possible blood sugar environments for an aging body at the very moment when that body is most vulnerable to its effects. What did you have for breakfast this morning? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know what we are working with, because what I am about to tell you about fixing this is going to make your breakfast choice tomorrow morning look completely different. Part 4. The specific fixes that work for seniors over 70. The good news is that blood sugar instability in seniors over 70 responds remarkably well to specific, targeted, and completely practical interventions that require no medication, no extreme dietary changes, and no expensive supplements. The first fix is protein before carbohydrates at every meal. Research published in Diabetes Care by Shukla and colleagues showed that consuming protein and vegetables before carbohydrates at the same meal reduces the post-meal blood glucose spike by an average of 37%, compared to eating the carbohydrates first or mixing everything together. For practical application, this means eating your eggs or your yogurt before your toast in the morning, eating your meat or fish before your rice or potatoes at lunch and dinner. The order of consumption at a single meal produces a dramatically different blood sugar response without changing a single ingredient. The second fix is a 10-minute walk within 30 minutes of finishing a meal. Research published in Sports Medicine by Reynolds and colleagues showed that a 10-minute walk performed within 30 minutes of eating produces a significantly greater reduction in post-meal blood glucose compared to a 30-minute walk performed 3 hours later. The mechanism is that muscle contraction during light walking directly stimulates glucose uptake by muscle cells through a non-insulin-dependent pathway, essentially bypassing the insulin resistance problem entirely and clearing glucose from the bloodstream through direct muscular demand. A 10-minute post-meal walk after every main meal could be the single most impactful change most seniors make this year. The third fix is adding a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a large glass of water 15 to 20 minutes before meals. Research published in Diabetes Care by Johnston and colleagues showed that acetic acid, the active component in apple cider vinegar, reduces the rate of gastric emptying and inhibits specific digestive enzymes involved in carbohydrate breakdown, collectively reducing post-meal blood glucose spikes by an average of 19 to 34% across multiple study populations. This is not a folk remedy. This is a well-researched, peer-reviewed nutritional intervention that costs pennies per day and produces measurable blood sugar improvements within 24 hours of starting. The fourth fix is resistance exercise specifically. Research published in Diabetes Care by Cuff and colleagues showed that resistance exercise training produces greater improvements in insulin sensitivity in older adults compared to aerobic exercise alone, with significant measurable improvements in post-meal blood glucose regulation within 8 weeks of consistent training. This is another reason why the morning resistance protocol from our first video is so much more than just a muscle-building strategy. It is directly improving the insulin sensitivity of every muscle cell in your body every single time you do it. Are you going to try the protein-first approach tomorrow morning? Type "first" in the comments if you are going to eat your protein before your carbohydrates starting tomorrow, because this one change alone could meaningfully change how you feel by tomorrow afternoon. Here is what I want you to take away from this video today. The afternoon brain fog, the energy crashes, the muscle weakness, the balance problems, the cognitive changes, none of these are simply age. They are all connected to a blood sugar regulation problem that affects the majority of adults over 70 and that responds directly to the specific interventions we covered today. Protein before carbohydrates, a 10-minute walk after meals, apple cider vinegar before eating, and consistent resistance exercise. 4 changes, all practical, all affordable, all backed by published research, and all starting tomorrow morning. Before you go, I want you to do 3 things. Give this video a thumbs up right now if this information genuinely surprised you, because most seniors have never heard the blood sugar and muscle loss connection explained in this way before. Subscribe to Senior Strength Guide and press the bell so you never miss a weekly video from Dr. Marcus Bell covering the conversations that your 12-minute appointment never gets to. And watch our video on muscle loss after 60 next, because it directly addresses the muscle breakdown side of everything we covered today and gives you the complete morning protocol that works together with everything in this video. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Drop your number of changes you are committing to in the comments. 1, 2, 3, or all 4. I will be reading every single one. I am Dr. Marcus Bell. Stay strong, stay aware, and I will see you in the next video.